Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Bible reading. We're going through the Bible in 102 days, and I'm joined by my good friend Nat.
What's up, guys?
So he's Nat and I we go way back to being wee little lads at a place called Upper Canada Village. I mean, we knew each other before that from swim gym.
And
I think
did
Upper
you ever
Canada.
do choir?
Yeah, choir.
Yeah, choir too. Yeah.
I think Upper Canada Village is where our friendship really became like, this is this is
the overnight bathroom wake ups because the basement was terrifying back in the day.
It was a lot of great memories were made.
Yep.
and friendships that endure to this day from that. So so like our lives have been intertwined with friendship since we were like 12 or maybe even younger.
Yeah, probably younger.
Probably younger, actually.
Yeah, because there was Michael's Bible study too.
I'm so bad at estimating what ages we are in my grades. We're like in grade 4 or 5.
Something like that. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yeah. So we have like years of friendship, but also we've studied the Bible together a lot with as a group with the other guys, and like so we have a lot of just history of reading the Bible together. So I think I'm excited to read with you, bro.
Yeah, same.
Sweet. So if this is your first time tuning into this and you're not sure what this is, it's kind of as the title implies, we are reading through the Bible in 102 days, just like it's so much harder. It's not mirrors. Just like it says on the screen. So we're reading through the Bible in 102 days. Currently, it is what day is this? This is day 81, and we are in the New Testament now. We are reading Matthew chapters 16 to 26 today. So we'll be starting at that in just a second. And the scriptures quoted are from the NET Bible, https://netbible.com, copyright 1996-2019, used with permission from Biblical Studies Press, LLC, all rights reserved.
Now say that 3 times as fast.
Oh man, I've kind of memorized that. I still look at it just to make sure, but I've mostly memorized it. It's like the one thing that this company asks in terms of copyright, which is nice. So
good.
Yeah, so we're going to take notes as we go. We'll take a couple notes after every chapter just to help us get like a summary of what we're going through. But we also like want to engage in this discussion together with each other. We want to engage in this discussion with you. So if you're watching live, or even if you're watching after the fact, feel free to drop a message in the comments, in the chat, or the collaborative notes document. And we'd love to hear what you're noticing in the text and be able to have this enriching dialogue back and forth. And so let us know if there's anything that sticks out to you. And if you are on, let us know. Say good morning. We won't bite, and we're happy to see that you're on. But we can only see that you're on if you say something. So, good morning, Francesca. Let's get into the reading. I think we'll open with a word of prayer. Do you want to pray, or I can pray?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, cool. All right. I'll pray. Lord God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for this time. Thank you for just the morning that we have here to read your word and be together, opening your word to draw close to you, Lord. We want to know you. We want to know your word more. I pray that what we read about what you did on earth, Jesus, would just really impact us profoundly, really help to change us and mold us into living for you. I pray in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Chapter 16. Who's taking the first one?
Rock, paper, scissors.
All right, let's do it. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You got it.
All right. All right. Now, when the Pharisees and Sadducees came to test Jesus, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He said, "When evening comes, you say, 'It will be fair weather because the sky is red.' And in the morning, it will be stormy today because the sky is red and darkening. You know how to judge correctly the appearance of the sky, but you cannot evaluate the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." Then they left them and went away. When the disciples went to the other side, they forgot to take bread. "Watch out," Jesus said to them. "Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." So they began to discuss this among themselves, saying, "It is because we brought no bread." When Jesus learned of this, he said, "You who have such little faith, why are you arguing among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? Don't you remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how many baskets you took up? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000, or how many baskets you took up? How could you not understand that I was not speaking to you about bread? But beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then they understood that he had not told them to be on guard against the yeast in the bread, but against the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. When Jesus came to the area of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They answered, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "You are blessed, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you release on earth will have been released in heaven." Then he instructed his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and experts of the law, and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. So Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "God forbid, Lord, this must not happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, because you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but on man's." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone wants to become my follower, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will find it. But what does it benefit a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his life? Or what can a person give in exchange for his life? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell you the truth, there are some standing here who will not experience death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Oh. Okay. Man, Matthew is so hard to summarize. There's always so much in these chapters, and I'm like trying to find like just a few things to summarize. Okay. I think I got it. Jesus warns the disciples against the yeast of the Pharisees. Peter declares that Jesus is the Christ. Peter tries to rebuke Jesus, and Jesus tells him, "Get behind me, Satan." Jesus says that he is going to be put to death. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like that. Do you have any thoughts from this chapter?
No, not in particular.
Okay. That's cool. All right. On to here, actually, if you want the keyboard to scroll,
just the arrows.
Yeah. Or I could have just given you the mouse, actually.
All right. On to Matthew 17.
Yep.
6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them privately up a high mountain. And he was transfigured before them. Sorry, just a FYI, I'm dyslexic, so it might be a little tough, but bear with me. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Then Moses and Elijah also appeared before them, talking with him. So Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you want, I will make 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my one dear son, in whom I take great delight. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they were overwhelmed with fear and threw themselves down with their face to the ground. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Do not be afraid." When they looked up, all they saw was Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Do not tell anyone about this vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." The disciples asked him, "Why then do the experts in the law say that Elijah must come first?" He answered, "Elijah does indeed come first and will restore all things. And I tell you that Elijah has already come." Yet they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wanted. In the same way, the Son of Man will suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist. When they came to the crowd, a man came to him, knelt before him, and said, "Lord, have mercy on my son, because he has seizures and suffers terribly. For he often falls into the fire and into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they were not able to heal him." Jesus answered, "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how much longer must I be with you? How much longer must I endure you? Bring him here to me." Then Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the boy was healed from that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why couldn't we cast it out?" He told them, "It was because of your little faith. I tell you the truth, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." When they gathered together in Galilee, Jesus told them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the 3rd day he will be raised." And they became greatly distressed. After they arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Your teacher pays the double drachma tax."
Yeah, I think. some kind of a tax we don't have anymore.
Yeah. Doesn't he? He said, yes. When Peter came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first. What do you think, Simon? From whom do earthly kings collect tolls or taxes? From their sons or from foreigners? After he said, from foreigners, Jesus said to him, then the sons are free. But so that we don't offend them, go to the lake and throw out a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a 4 drachma coin. That take that and give it to them for me and you.
That would have been nice during tax season a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Pick up a
Just like,
fish
yeah.
and get free money.
Just, yeah.
But yeah.
Just send like a check I found in the mouth of a fish. Oh man. Okay. So there's the transfiguration with Moses and Elijah. John the Baptist was the coming Elijah. All right, there's the mustard seed of faith. And then the prediction of death and resurrection and the temple tax. Okay. Mustard seed of faith. Jesus predicts his death and resurrection. The disciples are distressed by it. The temple tax paid by a fish.
I just find it interesting though that I never realized that Elijah, when he comes the second time, he comes in the form of John the Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah,
Never-
it is interesting. Like that's honestly confused me so much. Because it's like obviously Jesus says it pretty clearly, you know, that John the Baptist is this Elijah.
Yeah.
And actually there was a passage I read in yesterday's reading or the day before. I think the day before that also said that like Elijah or like John the Baptist was the promised Elijah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what does that mean? Like obviously he's a different human being than Elijah.
Yeah. But there's also at some point when they're talking about Elijah having to come first, I think I've noticed somewhere it kind of seems like Jesus like tells them that he's gonna die and come back, right? Outright. It was in the first part.
Oh, in the first part. But it is good for us to be make 3 shelters. Like they.
Yeah, but do not be afraid. And they looked up, all they said is Jesus alone. Oh, right there.
Which part?
Do not tell anyone about the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead.
True. That's actually really interesting because it like right here he says it again. So it's like really emphasized that Jesus will rise from the dead.
Yeah.
That's super interesting actually. I gotta add that to my notes. Okay. Jesus tells the disciples that saw the transfiguration not to tell anyone until after he had been raised from the dead. That's okay. It's interesting because of how much Jesus says, I will rise from the dead.
Yeah.
But then
kind of made it obvious.
Yeah. And then like I don't know. I guess
I guess is it later on that we see the when he dies in Matthew?
Yeah, I don't know.
Most of them
I think
don't
we might
even
get to it today. Actually, I don't think we'll get to the resurrection today, but we might get to the crucifixion today.
Because
no wait,
a lot of this
Yeah, I think we might. Maybe.
Maybe.
Because there's gonna be 2 chapters left of Matthew after this reading. So
Yeah.
what were you saying though?
I was saying, like, because doesn't, like, who was it that saw that the tomb was empty and then saw Jesus the first time?
Oh, like when John and Peter run to the tomb,
I think so.
and John puts in a snarky comment about how he outran Peter to get to the tomb first.
I think so. Well, anyways, like,
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't believe that Jesus was back, and then
Yeah.
he appeared to most of them at some point, and then they're like,
Oh,
what?
yeah. I think like Philip, who was like, I won't believe it until I
That's
can
it.
touch it.
Yeah.
kind of. And then Jesus like, here I am.
Here I am, yeah.
look, you can touch the
Yeah.
holes. You can.
Yeah. But yeah, like, he's been like saying it so obviously that I am coming back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he
That's
emphasizes
kinda
it,
crazy.
and everyone still at the end was like, no,
Yeah.
that's not true. I won't believe it until I see it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's crazy. It's I wonder like how it was for them in their minds after the after Jesus was raised from the dead. I
Mhm.
wonder if there was like a moment where they were all like collectively like face palming.
Yeah.
Where they all like remembered like like wait, he told us he would I don't know, maybe. Or full on body palm.
Body palm.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's definitely be interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
On to chapter 18. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a child, had him stand among them, and said, "I tell you the truth, unless you turn around and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humbles himself like this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes a child like this, in my name, welcomes me. But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a huge millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in the open sea. Woe to the world because of stumbling blocks. It is necessary that stumbling blocks come, but woe to the person through whom they come. If your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into fiery hell. See that you do not disdain one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven." Sorry, that sentence confused me. What do you think? If someone owns 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, will he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go look for the one that went astray? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he will rejoice more over it than over the 99 that did not go astray. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that one of these little ones be lost. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault when the 2 of you are alone. If he listens to you, you have regained your brother. But if he does not listen, take 1 or 2 others with you, so that at the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter may be established. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen to the church, treat him like a Gentile or a tax collector. I tell you the truth, whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you release on earth will have been released in heaven. Again, I tell you the truth, if 2 of you on earth agree about whatever you ask of my Father in heaven will do it for you. For where 2 or 3 are assembled in my name, I am there among them. Then Peter came to him and said, "Lord, how many times must I forgive my brother who sins against me? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, Not 7 times, I tell you, but 77 times. But for this reason, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his slaves. As he began settling his accounts, a man who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. Because he was not able to repay it, the Lord ordered him to be sold along with his wife, children, and whatever he possessed, and repayment to be made. Then the slave threw himself to the ground before him, saying, "Be patient with me, and I will repay you everything." The Lord had compassion on that slave and released him and forgave him the debt. After he went out, that same slave found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 silver coins. So he grabbed him by the throat and started to choke him, saying, "Pay back what you owe me." Then his fellow slave threw himself down and begged him, "Be patient with me, and I will repay you." But he refused. Instead, he went out and threw him in prison until he repaid the debt. When his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were very upset and went and told their lord everything that had taken place. Then his lord called the first slave and said to him, "Evil slave, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not have shown mercy to your fellow slave just as I showed it to you?" And in anger, his lord turned him over to the prison guards to torture him until he repaid all he owed. So also my heavenly Father will do to you, if each of you does not forgive your brother from your heart. Oof. This one's a bit more intense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there's the kids, the lost sheep, the what happens when a brother sins against you.
Calling out.
Yeah, calling out. And then the unforgiving slave. Okay. Jesus. I'm glad I got that because I totally mumbled that by accident.
It sounded like Jesus.
Yeah. I really didn't think I was going to get it. Welcomes the little children to come to him. Instructions for calling a brother out. Shoot, I drew a blank. There's the lost sheep. Okay. And then the lost sheep. The slave who owed an unforgivable debt, who was forgiven, who then is not willing to forgive a smaller debt owed to him. Owed. There you go. All right. Nice. Yeah, forgiveness is definitely kind of a theme here.
Yeah.
I think yeah, there's some things about this passage that are definitely more confusing though, like like the bind on earth, bound in heaven, released on earth, released in heaven. Like that's really confusing. But yeah, I think obviously the parable of the lost sheep is probably one of, if not the best known parable.
Yeah.
Because it's just so cool, like just seeing like that, the father's heart in pursuing the sheep and being the good shepherd, like God being the good shepherd, and like yeah. All right, on to the next one.
Yes, sir.
Matthew 19. There you go. Do you want to scroll with the mouse or with the keyboard?
I like the keyboard better.
Okay, yeah. I like the keyboard better too. The mouse just how like jumps up. Like,
Well, am I able to like use the laptop?
oh yeah.
Because
Yeah, for sure.
that way you can keep your
That's true. So,
yeah.
yeah, we all have to pass it back
Yeah.
and forth the whole time.
All right. Matthew 19. Now when Jesus finished these sayings, he left Galilee and went to the region of Judea, beyond the river, the Jordan River. Large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. Then some Pharisees came to him in order to test him. They asked, "Is it lawful to divorce a wife for any cause?" He answers, "Have you not read that from the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and will be united with his wife, and the two will become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." They said to him, "Why then did Moses command us to give a certificate of dismissal and to divorce her?" Jesus said to them, "Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because of your hard hearts. But from the beginning it was not this way. Now I say to you that whoever divorces his wife, except for immorality, and marries another commits adultery." The disciples said to him, "If this is the case of a husband with a wife, it is better not to marry." He said to them, "Not everyone can accept this statement, except those to whom it has been given. For there are some Enochs who were that way from birth, and some who were made Enochs by others, and some who became Enochs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who is able to accept this should accept it." Then little children were brought to him for him to lay his hands on them and pray. But the disciples scolded those who brought them. But Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not try to stop them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." And he placed his hands on them and went on his way. Now someone came up to him and said, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to gain eternal life?" He said to him, "Why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. But if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments." "Which ones?" he asked. Jesus replied, "Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself." The young man said to him, "I have wholeheartedly obeyed all these laws. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." But when the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful, for he was very rich. Then, my bad. Sorry, guys.
I've hit like the page down button so many times, and then I completely lose myself.
Then Jesus said to his disciples, "I tell you the truth. It will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I say, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter into the kingdom of God." The disciples were greatly astonished, and when they heard this, and said, "Then who can be saved?" Jesus looked at them and replied, "This is impossible for mere humans, but for God all things are possible." Then Peter said to him, "Look, we have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us?" Jesus said to them, "I tell you the truth. In the age when all things are renewed, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And whoever has left houses or brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers or children or fields for my sake will receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first.
Whew. Oops.
I wonder why Jesus says, "I tell you the truth," like often.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. He does like emphasize that a lot. It's kind of like, I don't know. There's probably some kind of like a cultural context thing about it. Like, I don't know. There's like, I know for like the thing on divorce, like they say like, is it lawful to divorce a wife for any cause? That comes from a certain rabbi from before Jesus, who I think his name was Hillel. Anyways, I think that's what it is, but I could be wrong. But either way, he was kind of like a I don't know, super cool rock star kind of rabbi who just kind of like told people whatever they wanted to hear in a sense, especially about divorce. And so he made like all kinds of like crazy allowances for divorce, to the point where it's essentially like, if your wife burns your toast, divorce her kind of thing. It was like crazy stuff like that. So that's why the disciples are like, is it lawful to divorce a wife for any cause? And she's like, no. Like, no. You cannot get a divorce for burnt toast. You can't get a divorce for, like, you've made that commitment. You're like, so I wonder if it's like there's probably something like that behind why Jesus keeps saying like, I tell you the truth, like a certain like cultural background to it that he needs to emphasize, like, that I tell you the truth.
And
yeah. I'm guessing probably a lot of dishonesty and whatever.
That's true.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like back then they probably, like in that time, they probably faced a lot of like people who stole and like dishonest people that were you know trying to like do stuff or start different religions and stuff, because it is true, like a lot of places like this were always trying to start a new relation, new religion, or
and like even with like within like Judaism, in this sense, like there were a lot of people that were rising up as like insurrectionists and kept like claiming, either some would personally claim, some would be claimed as like the promised Messiah. And like, they'd be like, these big, like, strong men who could conquer an army and whatever, but then like that wasn't God's plan. But like people would like rally around these people and like think that this is God's coming Messiah, this is the one who's going to set us free, and it wasn't. And like I'm pretty sure like Barabbas was an insurrectionist, So the guy who got released instead of Jesus. And I think and like
Mm.
Jesus and Barabbas's name was Jesus Barabbas. Meanwhile, Jesus, like the imposter Messiah, is the one who gets released. Meanwhile, the real Messiah, the real Christ, is the one that gets put to death.
Put to death.
Which is like a whole other level of dimension to the story that is like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't know, just like here, and I think it's interesting too. Like when he says, like, "I tell you the truth," it's not really things that are, I don't know how to say it. Like it's not necessarily things that are like common sense, if you will.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "I tell you the truth, it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven," which is like, especially in that context, in a society ruled by kingdoms, it's like if you're rich, you're probably more likely to be welcomed into a foreign kingdom.
Oh, we just lost the camera.
Oh, it does that from time to time. It just has to like, I don't know why it does that. It like has to like, I don't know, take a breather, like takes a water break, and but yeah, like I like it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Like, you know, it's like essentially like, I tell you the truth, you can't buy your way into heaven.
Yeah.
And then this other point here, I tell you the truth, in the age when all things are renewed, the Son of Man, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Like that also just doesn't make sense. Like these are just a bunch of nobody peasants. And even the richest of whom would probably have been Matthew, the tax collector, but you know, he got rich from his corruption.
Yeah.
And like either way, not people that you would ever expect to be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like someone who's gonna sit on a throne, someone who's gonna like bring like judgments and or whatever the is it, I think it is judging the 12 tribes. Like it's kind of like, no, you guys are just like a bunch of like, I don't know, you like Jesus didn't even have a home. Like like who's this like random band of like ragtag people that Jesus gathered together? He's like, I tell you the truth, you know, you will sit on thrones and you will judge the 12 tribes. It's like every time he says that, it seems to be like something that's kind of like, that doesn't make sense. Like that seems like,
I wonder if it's like the fact that Jesus is always walking around with, or he's always in the crowd of people, of like tax collectors and like people who are known to like fraud.
Yeah.
Right. I wonder if that's why he has to specify. I'll tell you the truth.
That's true. That is a good point. Probably. Yeah. Like, probably. Because like the tax collectors kind of had this like insane power where they had like a certain amount that they were required to tax people, but then they could ask like a little extra for their own income, which I guess makes sense, but it was so unregulated that they'd be like, yeah, you know what? Tax is gonna be how does $50,000 sound, eh? Like, you know? and then the next person is like, oh, I really don't like you. You owe me 100,000. Like, and so like it's like, oh, you don't have that? Oh, well, you know what? I guess I'll just have to take your donkey. I'll have to take your house. Like all kinds of like just crazy things.
How many shekels do you have?
Yeah.
I'll take
like,
that plus your house.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, that's probably like a good thing, like or like a good point about like the dishonesty of tax collectors. Then and even like throughout the Bible, I think a phrase that I've noticed reading through the Bible, oopsies, what just happened with my tabs here? What?
Did you just open like a new page, like all the same tabs?
I don't know. I think I might have. Okay. Anyways, let's. All right. I want to find this phrase. There's this phrase that comes up so much throughout the Bible, and it's that God hates dishonest scales. And just typing that in just to see how many times it'll pop up. Well, apparently no times. Let's see. Actually, I'll go to the NET.
I think it said Dishost.
Oh, that's
Dishost.
Dishost. Honest. That's probably why. What? No. Dishonest. I know for a fact I've read it so many times. It's okay. There, the Lord abhors dishonest scales. The Lord abhors differing weights. Dishonest scales are wicked. Businessmen love to cheat. They use dishonest scales. Yeah, like it is. Maybe it hasn't come up as much as I thought it was, but like I feel like it came up in the law too. Hold on, we're gonna do a quick Google search. But like that's kind of like the same thing of like being like, hey, you owe me, like you want to buy my water bottle? Here, buy my water bottle. I'll sell it to you for $5. But then the way it was like paid wasn't like, okay, here's like $5. It was like, you have to weigh it against a counterweight that would weigh the same amount. So it's like I'll weigh that, I'll give this to you for the equivalent of 500 grams
the money
of
value, but like
the weight. Yeah, exactly. And so then people would sometimes have like dishonest scales that would tilt it more so that it would weigh more. So you'd end up having to, it'd be like, oh yeah, like, it's only this much. And then you it's like, oh, actually, no, it looks like you got to keep putting more money. And then it eventually balances off.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Let's go on a tangent. But yeah. All right. Oh shoot. I gotta take a few notes. I forgot about my notes. Okay. There's Jesus teaches on divorce. Jesus talks about the little children again. What was the next thing in the order? There's, the rich young man. The rich young man comes to Jesus and Jesus gives him a challenge to sell everything and follow him, which he refuses. Jesus says, I tell you the truth a few times, followed by a statement that seems odd. Okay. Cool. On to 20. Who read the last one?
I did.
Okay. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the workers for the standard wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, he went out again and saw others standing around in the marketplace without work. He said to them, you go into the vineyard too, and I will give you whatever is right. So they went. When he went out again about noon and 3 o'clock that afternoon, he did the same thing. And about 5 o'clock that afternoon, he went out and found others standing around and said to them, why are you standing here all day without work? They said to him, because no one hired us. He said to them, go and work in the vineyard too. When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, call the workers and pay them their wages, starting with the last hired until the first. When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each received a full day's pay. And when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each one also received the standard wage. When they received it, they began to complain against the landowner, saying, these last fellows worked 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who bore the hardship and burning heat of the day. And the landowner replied to one of them, friend, I am not treating you unfairly. Didn't you agree with me to work for the standard wage? Take what is yours and go. I want to give to you, I want to give to this last man the same as I gave to you. Am I not permitted to do what I want with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first and the first last. As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 aside privately and said to them on the way, "Look, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the experts of the law. They will condemn him to death, and will turn him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged severely and crucified. Yet on the third day he will be raised." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, and kneeling down, she asked him for a favor. He said to her, "What do you want?" She replied, "Permit these two sons of mine to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You don't know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup I am about to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He told them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right and at my left is not mine to give. Rather, it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." Now, when the other 10 heard this, they were angry with the two brothers. But Jesus called them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those in high positions use their authority over them. It must not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did, not overcome to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed them. 2 blind men were sitting by the road. When they heard that Jesus was passing by, they shouted, "Have mercy on us, Lord, Son of David." The crowd scolded them to get them to be quiet. But they shouted even more loudly, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." Jesus stopped, called them, and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said to him, "Lord, let our eyes be opened." Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes. Immediately they received their sight and followed him. Wow. There's a...
The first shall be last, and the
Yeah.
last shall be first came up again.
Yep.
I think twice, or somewhat twice. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, it did come up, like it came up like word for word in the last
There,
chapter.
yeah.
It came up word for word here,
and
then
like
it comes up.
indirectly,
Yeah,
right after.
yeah, like I think here.
Yeah,
Maybe
the first among
somewhere.
you must be your slave.
Yeah,
26 to 28.
yeah, and that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The first will be last, and the last will be first. And there's the... Oh yeah, so there's the parable of the workers who start at different times but get paid the same. Oh yeah, that's true. He predicted his death and resurrection again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Jesus predicts his death and resurrection for a third time. This time we don't get a reaction from them though, so it's interesting. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it's not emphasized in the text, or not stated in the text. So let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, that's true. The mother of the sons of Zebedee. She's like, "Hey." The mother of James and John asks Jesus to seat her sons at his right and left in heaven. Uh, Jesus says that it is not for him to appoint that. We are to follow in Jesus's servanthood footsteps, since he came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And then two blind men. It's interesting because they're insistent. The two blind men who are crying out to Jesus to have mercy on them, and he heals them. Like, even when the crowd is like, be quiet.
Yeah.
Like, they shouted even more loudly. Oh. It's like, I don't know. Like, especially in like, considering that they're blind, like,
Mhm.
they probably would have been much more likely to get pushed out and not have any access to Jesus. So that was probably like the only way that they could access Jesus, was if Jesus came to them, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I don't think the lesson in this is, if God doesn't give you the Lamborghini you're praying for, to just pray louder for it. But I think it is that, like, you know, we do need Jesus to come to us and to, you know, be to be the one who makes us see spiritually. Anyways,
Interesting.
did you have any other thoughts, or
No.
on to the next chapter?
Yep.
All right. Oh, this one's cool.
Hopefully I don't mess it up. Chapter 21. Now when they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage.
Yeah, I guess. Bethphage.
I am not great at names, guys.
It's, there's I don't think there is, unless you've grown up
I just
like
totally.
studying Hebrew. Like, it's
Anyways, right. At the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, telling them, "Go to the village ahead of you. Right away, you will find a donkey, tied there, sorry, and a cloth with her."
colt.
The colt. Wow, sorry guys. Unite them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you are to say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophets. "Tell the people of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, unassuming and seated on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." So the disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their coats on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road. Others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those following kept shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." As he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was thrown into an uproar, saying, Who is this?" And the crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." Then Jesus entered the temple area and drove out all those who were selling and buying in the temple courts, and turned over the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are turning it into a den of robbers." The building, the blind and the lame came to him in the temple courts, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the experts in the law saw the wonderful things he did, and heard the children crying out in the temple courts, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became indignant,
Yeah.
and said to him, "Do you hear what they are saying?" Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read? Out of the mouth of children and nursing infants, you have prepared praise for yourself." And leaving them, he went out of the city of Bethany and spent the night there. The city to Bethany, sorry, spent the night there. Now, early in the morning, as he returned to the city, he was hungry. After noticing a fig tree by the road, he went to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. He said to it, "Never again will there be fruit from you." And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they were amazed, saying, "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" Jesus answered them, "I tell you the truth. If you have faith and do not doubt, not only will you do what was done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be lifted up and thrown into the sea,' it will happen. And whatever you ask in prayer, if you believe, you will receive." Now, after Jesus entered the temple courts, the chief priests and elders of the people came up to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Jesus answered them, "I will also ask you one question. If you answer me, then I will also tell you by what authority I do these things. Where did John's baptism come from? From heaven or from people?" They discussed this among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Then why did you not believe him?' But if we say from people, we fear the crowd, for they all consider John to be a prophet." So they answered Jesus, "We don't know." Then he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things."
Got him.
Got him. It's like borderline gaslighting. What do you think? A man had 2 sons. He went to the first and said, "Son, go and work in the vineyard today." The boy answered, "I will not." But later he had a change of heart and went. The father went to the other son and said the same thing. This boy answered, "I will, sir," but did not go. "Which of the 2 did his father's will?" they said. "The first," Jesus said to them. "I tell you the truth. Take tax collectors and prostitutes will go ahead of you into the kingdom of God. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and prostitutes did believe. Although you saw this, you did not later change your minds and believing him." Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a fence around it, dug a pit for its windpress, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to yeah he leased it to tenant farmers, and went on a journey. When the harvest time was near, he sent his slaves to the tenants to collect his portion of the crops. But the tenants seized his slaves, beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other slaves, more than the first, and they treated them the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, "They will respect my son." But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him and get his inheritance." So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? They said to him, "He will utterly destroy those evil men. Then he will lease the vineyard to another tenant, to other tenants, who will give him his portion at the harvest." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read the scriptures? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our eyes. For this reason I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a people who will produce its fruit. The one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and the one on whom it falls will be crushed." When the chief priest and the Pharisees heard his parables, they realized that he was speaking about them. They wanted to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowds, because the crowds regarded him as a prophet. Ooh, that was a mouthful.
Yeah. That was a long one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's the triumphant entry.
Yeah, the triumphant entry.
The flipping tables.
Oh, yeah.
The fig tree. Jesus' authority is from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
The two sons who have different views on obedience.
Yeah.
The tenants. Shoot. Okay.
The story of the tenants is wild, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, it is a pretty crazy story. But it is literally what happened. Okay, I guess not literally. It is figuratively what happened.
Yeah.
With the the slave or the servants in the field are supposed to be the the Jewish people who, and the Pharisees and whatever, and then they killed the prophets. And and then they're like, here's the son. Let's kill him. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right. I'll try to take a few notes. The triumphal entry, fulfilling prophecy. Jesus flips tables and cleanses the temple that is supposed to be a house of prayer, but has been turned to a den of robbers.
Den of robs.
That's funny. And there's withers the fig tree. The authority of Jesus. Oh man. Okay. Jesus withers the fig tree. His authority is from on high. Oh man. Parable of the two sons, parable of the tenants. Okay. Parable. It heard me from the other tab. All right. Usually it like cuts off as soon as you like change tabs, but
Okay.
it like wrote it right here from the other tab. That's funny. All right. Did you have any other thoughts, by the way, about that one?
No, not particularly.
I think actually something that came to mind is I think it mentioned like what you were saying before about like I tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was like one of those statements here.
Tell you the truth.
Yeah. It's like I tell you the truth. If you have faith and do not doubt, not only will you do what was done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, "Be lifted up and thrown into the sea," it will happen. It's like, and then there's another one here. I tell you the truth. Tax collectors and prostitutes will go ahead of you into the kingdom of God. Oof. And yeah, that. And I think this one is being said to the Pharisees, which would have been like in that context they would have been like the best of the best, supposedly, professionals at keeping the law. Meanwhile, Jesus is saying like, you know, these guys, literally like tax collectors and prostitutes, were seen as like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're gonna go in ahead of you. It's like, shoot. All right. Drops the hammer on them. All right. Chapter 22. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to summon those who had been invited to the banquet, but they would not come. Again, he sent other slaves, saying, tell those who have been invited, look, the feast I have prepared for you is ready. My oxen and fattened cattle have been slaughtered. Everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. But they were indifferent and went away. One to his farm, another to his business. The rest seized his slaves, insolently mistreated them, and killed them. The king was furious. He sent his soldiers, and they put those murderers to death and set their city on fire. Then he said to his slaves, the wedding is ready, but the ones who had been invited were not worthy. So go into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet. And those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the wedding guests, he saw a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. And he said to him, friend, how did you get in here without wedding clothes? Wedding crasher. But he had nothing to say. Then the king said to his attendants, tie him up, hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Then the Pharisees went out and planned together to entrap him with his own words. Good luck. They sent to him their disciples along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You do not court anyone's favor because you show no partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus realized their evil intentions and said, hypocrites, why are you testing me? Show me the coin used for the tax. So they brought him a denarius. Jesus said to them, whose image is this and whose inscription? They replied, Caesar's. He said to them, then give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Now, when they heard this, they were stunned, and they left him and went away.
Got him.
The same day, Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him, Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies without having children, his brother must marry the widow and father children for his brother. Now, there were 7 brothers among us. The first one married and died, and since he had no children, he left his wife to his brother. The second did the same, and the third down to the 7th. Last of all, the woman died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had married her. Jesus answered them, You are deceived because you don't know the scriptures or the power of God. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. Now, as for the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you about God? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. When the crowds heard this, they were amazed at his teaching. Now, when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they assembled together. And one of them, an expert in religious law, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? Jesus said to him, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these two. While the Pharisees were assembled, Jesus asked them a question. What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he? They said, the son of David. He said to them, How then does David by the Spirit call him Lord, saying, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet. If David then calls him Lord, how can he be his son? Now, no one was able to answer him a word, and from that day on, no one dared to question him any longer. But this is a funny chapter.
Yeah.
It's like the Pharisees first. They're like, oh yeah, we got him. Like, we're going to get him with this. Because this is basically like who should we pay taxes to? Is it Caesar or to God? Because Caesar is like, he was like a godlike figure, in some ways worshipped, like, or in a lot of ways actually worshipped. So it's like, kind of like, hey, like, if we pay to see, like, kind of trying to trap him into being like, if we pay to tax to Caesar, then that's like, because we don't honor God kind of thing. And Jesus like, no, you just pay the tax. And like, it's like, pay the tax and pay to God what is God's. Like, and then they're like, shoot. And then the Sadducees that are like, they're like rival groups that hate each other. Then they're like, you know what? Our turn. We'll go in. And then they get silenced and they're like, shoot. Like, and then the two groups that hate each other, they go in together and then they get humbled over and over again.
I think that's wild though. The whole like, if like the husband dies, then the brother takes over.
Yeah. Well, it was because like in that context and like when the law was given too, like they were like a random group of nomadic people in the wilderness that were just kind of like wandering around with kind of hopes that they would survive and hopes that they would move on and endure as a nation. But like, that's why like bloodlines were so important. And so it was like that job went to the brother, which is kind of like a really weird thing in our context. But for them, it was all about like ensuring that like the bloodline would continue. Yeah. Because then, it's also confusing because then if you go down and say like the 7th husband had kids, then when he start to have kids, like the first kid he has is for his oldest brother, then for the next brother, then for the next, then the next. Like, I don't know. But like that's kind of like just how bloodlines worked back then. Just kind of different. Different thing.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
like, could you imagine that, like for example, like if you were to die, your brother would have to take over?
No.
That's so weird.
That'd be so weird.
Like same for me. Like
Yeah.
me and my brother are like two completely different people.
Yeah.
I feel bad both for my brother and my wife.
Yeah, same. Oh,
It'd be like the awkwardest thing.
yeah.
So I guess we have to marry now. You know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be so awkward.
Yeah. But it's kind of strange though, like when you think about it, like, you know, if the oldest is married, then the one underneath is like also married.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't you prioritize them marrying different people to like continue the bloodline? That way the bloodline is expanded more than just if, you know, he marries her,
That's true.
then he dies, and then he has to marry her.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of like counterproductive, I guess.
Yeah. I guess so.
Unless he takes over, unless he like, because I know back then like the laws on having multiple wives were a bit iffy.
Yeah.
So would that also take place where he, like if he's already married, then he'd also take on the other wife?
It could be. It was like, I mean, polygamy was weirdly kind of practiced more back then, even though God never encouraged it and never said it was a good thing. So, but maybe that might be something that people did. They're like, okay, I guess I'll marry my brother's wife for the sake of the lineage, and then I'll also have my wife that I want as my wife, kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. See, I guess. Yes, slight awkwardness.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like weird, like awkward, family blending stories in the Bible. Like, like who was it? Was it Reuben who ended up like sleeping with his daughter-in-law because she disguised herself as a prostitute? It was something like that. It's just kind of like his, I think, yeah, it is. I think it was Reuben, but one of them who like his daughter-in-law or like his son married a girl who like became a widow, and then I think he had like another son or whatever, and then instead of like taking care of her, because in that context, if you're a widow, you're basically screwed and your life is done. So instead of like taking care of her, he like something like is like, yeah, who cares about you, kind of thing, like whatever, or like doesn't want to take care of her, doesn't want to do anything. And so then she like disguises herself as a prostitute, and then he does stuff with her as a prostitute, and then like she requests like his cloak and his staff as like kind of a proof of payment, and then like a while later she's found to be pregnant, and then he's like, oh, you're gonna die now because you're pregnant. And then she's like, all right, but whose are these? It's like what? Such a crazy story. It's like one of those really weird stories that's in the Bible, not prescribed but described. Like something is, this is not something you do. Like there's a lot of like messy families in the Bible, but God still worked through it all.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, there's a lot of messy stuff.
Yeah. But it is good to keep in mind the distinctions of things that are like God instructs and things that are just
Yeah.
explained. Hey,
Yeah.
this happened. Just because it happened and it's
Doesn't
explained
mean
in the
it's
Bible.
okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that the Bible explains because they're not okay. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and so when people try to use the Bible to be like,
Oh yeah, it
the
says
Bible's
this.
justifying all these things, oftentimes it's like, well, no, you're
No.
taking a story that the Bible is actually really opposed to, but it's using as an example of something that's awful and like,
Yeah.
or it's relevant to the story. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
oh man. All right. Seven
Seven
woes.
Jinx. Okay. Chapter 23. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The experts in the law and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, pay attention to what they tell you and do it. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads, hard to carry, and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing even to lift a finger to move them." That almost sounds like my line of work in construction, and then you have like all the people who like just make sure the work gets done right while you're breaking your back. They're
Yeah.
just like, "Good job," or "Do this better." Anyways, yeah. Sorry. Side note. Okay. They do all their deeds to be seen by people, for they make their phylacteries.
I have no clue what that is.
Me neither. First time I've seen this word. Wide, and their tassels long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the best seats in the synagogues, and elaborate greetings in the marketplaces, and to have people call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father, who is in heaven. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Christ. The greatest among you will be your servant. And whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. But woe to you, experts in the law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! You keep locking people out of the kingdom of heaven, for you neither enter nor permit those trying to enter to go in. Woe to you, experts in the law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! You cross land and sea to make one convert, and when you get one, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. Woe to you, blinding guides, who say, "Whoever swears by the temple is bound by nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple is bound by the oath." Blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And whoever swears by the altar is bound by nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift on it, he is bound by the oath. You are blind. For which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? So whoever swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and the one who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and the one who sits on it. Woe to you, experts in the law, and you Pharisee hypocrites! You give a tenth of mint, dill, and cumin,
Yeah.
yet you neglect what is more important in the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have done these things without neglecting the others. Blind guides, you strain out a gnat, yet swallow a camel. Woe to you, experts in the law and Pharisee hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but instead they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup, so that the outside may become clean too. Woe to you, expert in the law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs that look beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and of everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you look righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, experts in the law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have participated with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. By saying this, you testify against yourselves that you are descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your ancestors, you snakes, you offspring of vipers. How will you escape being condemned to hell? For this reason, I am sending you prophets and wise men and experts in the law, some of whom you will kill and crucify, and some you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town, so that on you will come all the righteous blood. That was a weird phrase.
Yeah.
Shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Barachiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. I tell you the truth. This generation will be held responsible for all these things. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those who are sent to you. How often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would have none of it. Look, your house is left to you desolate. Okay.
Yeah.
For I tell you, you will not see me from now until you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.
Okay. All right.
I really like the part where he's like talking to the Pharisees and the guy saying that like they're trying to like not be their fathers, but yet little do they know they're going to like crucify the Son of God. You know? They're the exact ones that are going to be doing this.
Yeah.
Shortly, you know.
No, that's crazy. It's and they don't clue in at all.
Yeah.
They're just like, no, we wouldn't do that. We're just gonna kill the one that all the prophets are talking about. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad.
I wonder
It's
if
so
he's
such
hinting.
tragedy.
I wonder, like, when he mentions and crucifies, um, where was that again? Yeah. For this reason, I am sending you prophets and wise men and experts in the law,
Mm.
some of whom you will kill and crucify. I wonder if he's including himself in that one when he mentions
Yeah.
that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jesus was a prophet too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's God, but he was, the epitome of a priest, the epitome of a prophet, epitome of a king.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll take a few notes.
Yeah.
Wait, is that 23? Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus gives a series of 7 woes to the Pharisees who don't recognize their own hypocrisy and think highly of themselves. I think I'll leave it like that. Otherwise, I'll have to go and like pick out all the specific ones. But all right.
Well, I mean, it covers
Yeah.
most of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
It's like, oh, there's so much of reading the Bible. So much of the experience of reading the Bible is just kind of like, get it, understand this. Like, so many times you're like looking at people in the Bible and you're like, ah. But then that's kind of like, we get the perspective in the like reading the Bible that is a better, like, higher perspective.
Yeah.
And so then that it kind of sucks when we're like, oh, it's probably like that with us too.
Yeah.
Where God is like looking at us like we should totally get it, but we just keep messing up and keep not getting it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, on to chapter 24. Now, as Jesus was going out of the temple courts and walking away, his disciples came to show him the temple buildings. And he said to them, "Do you see all these things? I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left on another. All will be torn down." As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, his disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And the end of the age, yeah. Jesus answered them, "Watch out that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will mislead many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Make sure that you are not alarmed, for this must happen, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise up in arms against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pains. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and will kill you. You will be hated by all the nations because of my name. Then many will be led into sin, and they will betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many. And because lawlessness will increase so much, the love of many will grow cold. But the person who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole inhabited earth as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. So, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken about by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. The ones on the roof must not come down to take anything out of his house, and the one in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing their babies in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be a great suffering, unlike anything that has ever happened from the beginning of the world until now, or ever will happen. And if those days had not been cut short, no one would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, Here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Remember, I have told you ahead of time. So then, if someone says to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe him. For just like the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the suffering of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man arriving in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a loud trumpet blast, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Excuse me. Learn this parable from the fig tree. Whenever its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also you, when you see all these things, know that he is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But as for that day and hour, no one knows it, not even the angels in heaven, except the Father alone. For just like the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days, before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and took them all away. It will be the same at the coming of the Son of Man. Then there will be two men in the field, one will be taken and one left. There will be two women grinding grain, one with a mill. One will be taken and one left. Therefore stay alert, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have been alert and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise slave whom the master has put in charge of his household to give the other slaves their food at the proper time? Blessed is the slave whom the master finds at work when he comes. I tell you the truth, the master will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that evil slave should say to himself, my master is staying away a long time, and he begins to beat his fellow slaves and to eat and drink with drunkards, then the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not foresee, and will cut him in two, and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, a whole lot of...
Yep.
Jesus talks about a bunch of prophecies of end times and abomination that causes desolation and other future scary days. Just, yeah, so much.
Yeah. Great way to describe it.
Yep. Just a lot of scary things that some came true, some might be coming true. I don't even know the timeline of it all, so I mean, it all comes true at some point or another. I just don't know which ones of those are referring to like the destruction of the temple, which ones are referring to the end of the world, or like end times. Like, just it's, yeah,
Definitely something to look into eventually.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. 25. Oops. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of the virgins were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish one took their lamps, they did not take extra olive oil with them, but the wise ones took flasks of oil with their lamps. When the bridegroom was delayed a long time, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, the bridegroom is here. Come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." "No," they replied. "There won't be enough for you and for us. Go instead to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they had gone to buy it, the bridegroom arrived, and those who were ready went inside with him to the wedding banquet. Then the door was shut. Later the other virgins came to saying, "Lord, Lord, let us in." But he replied, "I tell you the truth, I do not know you. Therefore stay alert, because you do not know the day or the hour. For it is like a man going on a journey, who summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The one who had received 5 talents went off right away and put his money to work, and gained 5 more. In the same way, the one who had 2 gained 2 more. But the one who had received 1 talent went out and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money in it. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled his account with them. The one who had received the 5 talents came and brought 5 more, saying, "Sir, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more." His master answered, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You have been faithful in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." The one with the 2 talents also came and said, "Sir, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more." His master answers, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Then the one who had received the 1 talent came and said, "Sir, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours." But his master answered, "Evil and lazy slave. So you knew that I harvest where I didn't sow, and gather where I didn't scatter. Then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. For the one who has will be given more, and he will have more than enough. But the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless slave into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gna- gnashing
Yeah.
of teeth. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be assembled before him, and he will separate people one from another, like a shepherd separate the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "I tell you the truth. Just as you did it for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did it for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you are cursed, into the eternal fire that has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was stranger, and you did not receive me as a guest. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they too will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not give you whatever you needed?" Then he will answer them, "I tell you the truth. Just as you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me. And these will depart into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life."
Wow.
That's kind of interesting, like the comparison of like sheep and goats,
Yeah.
right? Because like most of the time when we're talking about like food, clothing, and
Yeah.
whatnot, it's all like stuff that like is provided by the sheep,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Versus like we don't really hear much about like goat meat or
Yeah.
clothes made out of like goat fur,
Yeah, that's true.
you know?
Yeah, it's true. Like the only products that you really hear about coming from goats are like cheese or
Cheese.
milk.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
But
No,
the
like-
the
like
rest
a-
is all like
Never heard of someone being like, "Hey, check out like my nice goat socks." Like, but like
Yeah.
you hear like nice like sheep wool socks.
Wool
and,
socks,
like,
yeah.
you know, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
and like you don't hear about like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like goat tenderloins, or
Mm,
it's mostly like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like lamb ribs or lamb chops,
yeah.
like sheep, not
Yeah.
goat chops.
Yeah, that's true. Goat chop sounds funny. Yeah. All right.
It's kind of an interesting comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's also like interesting because like even though like sheep probably have like more uses.
Hmm.
Like as far as an animal, if you were to choose what animal to be between a sheep and a goat, I would probably choose a goat because at least they have horns, and sheep
Mm.
are kind of like pathetic.
Yeah.
Like,
Fair.
but we're constantly compared to as sheep in the Bible,
Yeah.
which is very humbling because they're like harmless, fluffy clouds that walk around and are also not very intelligent. And
Yeah, sometimes they think they're goats and they try
yeah,
to ram people and they end up hurting themselves
yeah.
more.
But it is kind of like one of those weird, like one of those like kind of like those "I tell you the truth" statements that have kind of like a
Yeah,
weird twist to them. It's
yeah.
like, guess what? You want to be a sheep.
You
Like,
want to be.
the sheep are the good ones. um, yeah,
Yeah,
and but they're like, but a goat has horns. It's like,
yeah, they
yeah,
can
but
defend themselves.
but a sheep makes wool.
She makes wool.
Sheep goes by.
It goes by. Makes nice food.
Oh. All right, let's read. This is the last chapter. It's crazy. This has already been 2 hours.
Oh wow.
It's like, yeah. What is that? Anyways. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he told his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people met together in the palace of the high priest, who was named Caiaphas. They planned to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, "Not during the feast, so that there won't be a riot among the people." Now, while Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of expensive perfume oil, and she poured it on his head as he was at the table. When the disciples saw this, they became indignant and said, "Why this waste? It could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." When Jesus learned of this, he said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a good service for me. For you will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this oil on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. I tell you the truth, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the one named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me to betray him into your hands?" So they set out 30 silver coins for him. From that time on, Judas began looking for an opportunity to betray him. Now, on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will observe the Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had instructed them, and they prepared the Passover. When it was evening, he took his place at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." They became greatly distressed, and each one began to say to him, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand in the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go as it is written about him. But woe to that man whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would be better for him if he had never been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi?" Jesus replied, "You have said it yourself." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it, gave it to his disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And after taking the cup and giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood, the blood of the covenant that is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, from now on, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said, "This night you will all fall away because of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter said to him, "If they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away." Jesus said to him, "I tell you the truth, on this night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will never deny you." And all the disciples said the same thing. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and became anguished and distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is deeply grieved, even to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake with me." Going a little further, he threw himself down with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, "So, couldn't you stay awake with me for 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it, your will must be done." He came again and found them sleeping. They could not keep their eyes open. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same thing once more. And then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is approaching, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us go. Look, my betrayer is approaching." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent by the chief priests and elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and took hold of Jesus and arrested him. But one of those with Jesus grabbed his sword, drew it out, and struck the high priest's slave, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place. For all who take hold of the sword will die by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot call on my Father, and that he would send me more than 12 legions of angels right now? How then would the scriptures that say it must happen this way be fulfilled?" At that moment, Jesus said to the crowd, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me like you would an outlaw? Day after day I sat teaching in the temple courts, yet you did not arrest me. But this has happened so that the scriptures of the prophets would be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled. Now the ones who had arrested Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the experts in the law and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him from a distance, all the way to the high priest's courtyard. After going in, he sat with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were trying to find false testimony against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find anything, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This man said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" So the high priest stood up and said to him, "Have you no answer? What is this that they are testifying against you?" But Jesus was silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said it yourself, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and declared, "He is blasphemed. Why do we still need witness? Now you have heard the blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They answered, "He is guilty and deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him with their fists. And some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy for us, you Christ. Who hit you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A slave girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it in front of them all. "I don't know what you are talking about." When he went out to the gateway, another slave girl saw him and said to the people there, "This man was with Jesus the Nazarene." He denied it again with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, those standing there came up to Peter and said, "You really are one of them too. Even your accent gives it away." At that time, At that he began to curse and swore with an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Oh,
That was a long one.
that was a long one. This is like 75 verses. Wow. Yeah, that's well, there's so much that takes place here. There's so many things. I actually had the pleasure of studying this passage pretty in depth, at least the Garden of Gethsemane pretty in depth recently, because I was preaching on it for Good Friday. But there's so much.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think one thing I will say, on the line of like these things that are crazy about this that kind of go unnoticed is like Jesus goes away to pray 3 times, and Gethsemane meant like olive press or oil press.
Okay.
And Jesus is being pressed so hard that like we're told like he starts like his sweat became like drops of blood. And he goes away to pray 3 times, just like the oil that was pressed 3 times. And there's so much like there's so many layers to this story. It's crazy, but yeah. Did you have any closing thoughts?
No. No, it's like I said, it's a pretty loaded chapter. Like,
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
But like, then again, it's also like we're at the part where it's like, you know, as Christians, we know this story by heart, you know?
Yeah.
just because we hear it every year, like once, maybe twice a year,
Yeah.
right? With like Easter Sunday and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we always hear the story. And so like, it's one of those stories that's kind of like, yeah, it sucks that he had to go through this, but
Yeah.
you know, it was part of God's plan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was required for us to have access to an eternal life with him. And yeah, all he asks is that we believe in him. So
Yeah.
you know, it's
Amen.
it's unfortunate that it had to happen this way, but you know.
Yeah. But he like I mean he said he lays down his life for his sheep, right?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
willingly chose this.
Mhm.
Like humans killed him, but he also
Yeah.
humans never would have been able to kill him if he did not choose to sacrifice himself for our sake, which is yeah super.
It's crazy that like, you know, like while they're having the dinner and then Jesus like calls it out and then like, one of you is gonna betray me. Like, I wonder what was going through Jesus's head right there. And then like, you know, because personally I'd be like
like, okay, awkward.
Gotta go, guys. Find whoever the high priest and stuff and be like, never mind. It's not happening. Here's your gold. Here's your silver back. Like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
You know.
honestly, that story, like with Judas at the Last Supper, has always confused me so much because
Hmm.
Jesus is like, yeah, you're the guy. You're gonna go betray me. I'm gonna get killed.
Yeah.
You're the guy. And like all the disciples just kind of like sit around and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've always been like, how does no one jump him? Like he's like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
But I mean, he doesn't directly say that Judas is the one that's
no,
gonna betray, right?
but it's like
But he makes it
pretty.
like obvious. Like I feel like when he mentions when Judas tells him like, "Oh yeah, like I'm not gonna betray you," and
Yeah,
then like Jesus does like says his comment right after. Like I'm picturing him being like, "Uh huh,
yeah.
you're totally not the one," like almost rolling his eyes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, intense stuff,
Hmm.
but it's good to be reminded of it many times.
Yeah.
While also not letting it become just another story that we've
Yeah.
heard a bunch of
Yeah,
times,
it's
and like
true.
it's got to stay fresh, and it's got to stay
Yeah.
um yeah, it's like the hard balance of like hearing something a lot so that like you're reminded of it a lot so you know it well,
Yeah.
but then if you hear it so much that you can tend to like forget about like the deep impact of it, kind of
That's
like,
true.
yeah.
That's
Anyways,
true.
all right.
Yeah.
um would you want to pray?
Sure.
Sweet.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful time that as brothers we can come together and
Yeah.
just read your word, Lord, and I ask that everything that we've read and gone over, Lord, that you would help us apply it to our lives as
Mhm.
we move on
Yeah.
and keep our hearts striving for you, Lord, and I pray that you can use um, this Bible reading that Adrian's doing for your will, Lord.
Mhm.
And yeah, I thank you for for the rest of the day, and I ask that you bless each and every one of us and people who are watching,
Mhm.
um, and listening, Lord, that you'd bless their day also.
Yeah.
In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Sweet. Thanks so much for reading with me, bro.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this was really fun. So this is the end of our morning reading today. We'll pick up the epic climax of the Bible on Monday. So there's a pretty big cliffhanger today.
Yeah.
So see you on Monday. I'll be reading live at 7 a.m. on Monday. I hope to see you then. God bless you.
God bless. Bye.